And welcome back to a Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and as always, my co-host, Chris here. We almost have week one in the books. I'm currently traveling, but still trying to get all the information I can to you guys here. So Chris and I are doing a nice, quick, short waiver wire episode that we will be posting every Tuesday morning for you guys. I'd say pre-Monday Night Football game, we'll be filming, but post weeks so that you guys can put in the waiver wires you want and make sure that your lineups are ready to go for the following week.
Obviously, because we're filming before Monday night, if there are any major injuries in the Monday night games, this will kind of affect our rankings. We'll go ahead and update in the text of the video. So if you do want to check us out after the Monday, and if there are any injuries, we will update. It just won't be in the actual video itself.
Yeah, and if we have time, we may even throw a short out there that speaks to it if there is any major injuries for the Jets or the Bills. But that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification button, as always, so you can get all the drops. Because as you know, we're in the full swing of it here, guys. So if you want to get the information you want, quick and efficient, we're here to give it to you. So let's start into it first. We got three waiver wire options, each of us here, that we're going to bring to you. I'll let Chris start off with his waiver wire option number one that he likes this week.
Yeah, I think the running back you really should target, especially if you lost Dobbins and you need some help at running back, or if you went zero running back, say you're a Cam Akers owner and he was your RB1. The guy you should be targeting is Josh Kelley. His usage yesterday was fantastic, and that doesn't matter if Austin Ekeler was out. Austin Ekeler missed 2 drives total during the game. So first of all, Josh Kelley is 7% rostered. He had a 48% snap share yesterday. He was RB8 on the week. He had 16 attempts, 91 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 5.96 yards per, or 6.9 yards per carry. So over 5.5 yards per carry. They play Tennessee next week. They play Minnesota in week 3. This is a great matchups for him. And I think he actually is going to have standalone value for the rest of the season. If anything did happen to Ekeler, he's going to be a primary back there. And you got to love having a running back in this offense, especially behind Ekeler, who's a non-traditional running back. It's the same kind of reason we liked Elijah Mitchell coming into the season behind McCaffrey, is that McCaffrey's not going to get a ton of touch. Like, he's not going to get Derrick Henry volume in the backfield or Nick Chubb volume in the backfield. So even though he is a change of pace back for Ekeler, we saw him rip off a ton of runs. Even before the Ekeler injury, he had 50 yards rushing, 20 of them on the first drive of the game. So on the first drive of the game, you're putting in your backup running back to help out as a change of pace. Like, he's getting volume. He's going to get touches there, especially if Ekeler breaks one. Like, Eckler's going to come out of the game and Kelley's going to come in. And if they're rolling, he might be getting a lot of red zone carries because of that. It's a guy I absolutely love and nobody owns right now.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree with you on that one. I differ in my opinion a little bit because as of right now, we're talking about 6:30 East Coast time. There's still no injury designation to Ekeler, so quote unquote injury in terms of that. But I will say the guy did have standalone value the first half of the game. He did have 8 carries for 40 yards after that slight ankle tweak that Ekeler had. But they skipped without a beat when they put him in there. And that's a good sign that he's locked in that number 2 position. And just like we like to be locked into the number 2 position in San Fran, this is a perfect opportunity. They showed that they increased, whether it was Miami was terrible or they increased their line efficiency through the run game. They are allowed to run between the tackles a lot better than Ekeler was able to last year. And he did it well last year. So I think the sky's the limit for this running game. Like Chris said, Ekeler breaks off a big run or like a big 40, 50-yard reception, he may take a breather, and they're not going to skip a beat putting Josh Kelley in. It's a guy who's just been waiting in the wings for a while now, and we know that Ekeler is going to be moving on after this season too, so it may be something that they either drive him into the ground or they prepare for the future with a couple options out there. So Josh Kelley, if he's in your leagues, go ahead and grab him. My first one here is going to be more quarterback related. There was some poor quarterback play week 1. Do not hit the panic button yet. Don't overreact and start, thinking Joe Burrow's a bench candidate or anything like that. But there are some people that we saw. Justin Fields last year. He was not great until the end of the season, and it was a big time running games that he gave us. If he's not going to be giving us 100 yards on the ground what's he going to be doing through the air? I did like that he was over 200 yards. I did like that his running was still efficient in terms of over 50 yards rushing. The thing that bothers me is that offense just didn't look good. The play calling didn't look good. And they're going into a game this week that's going to be difficult. And to me, if I'm going to be throwing Justin Fields out there, I got to feel confident. And you drafted him high, but Tampa Bay did shut down their opponents this week. I mean, they made it difficult for Kirk Cousins, who did throw up a 20 spot. But if you've got somebody like Jordan Love going against Atlanta or Mac Jones against Miami, those are two options that are probably going to be low owned out there. I like Jordan Love a lot because he just showed rapport with receivers. I don't think the Bears were that terrible of a defense, but they made him look pretty bad. And we obviously know what the Chargers did in Miami this past week. Herbert was able to pick and choose up until the end of the game, but I think the better option is going to be Jordan Love in Atlanta. I think they're going to pass the ball often, especially if Aaron Jones is out, because he was the better part of that run game.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say on that is Justin Fields did play his daddy yesterday, and whether that's Aaron Rodgers or whether that's Brett Favre, Chicago, the Green Bay Packers are your daddy.
Yeah, and Jordan Love's only 38% owned in sleeper leagues. Our pretty much our threshold was 40% ownership. So anything above 40% owned, we weren't going to bother talking about because most chances is 50-50 chance they're in your league available. So he's only 38% owned. He's a guy that even if you grab him to stash him during a bye week, it's a great opportunity because this guy looked really good yesterday. Yeah.
So, my second guy that I would go is at the receiver position. It's Puka Nacua. This is a guy that, I said he was going to be a sleeper coming into this week. And boy, I love being right. It just, it's a giant ego.
Nobody
boost.
Likes being right more than you. I know that for a fact.
So true. It is so true. He's 10% rostered right now. And meanwhile, if Cooper Kupp is planning on coming back week 5, that could be a longer injury than week 5. And he had 78% snap share at the wide receiver position last week in week 1. He was wide receiver 14 on the week. He had 15 targets. He had 10 receptions. 15 targets, 10 receptions, 119 yards, and the touchdown. So, actually, did he score a touchdown? Double check that for me really quick.
I'll double check.
I don't think he did score a touchdown. What was nice is that he had 11.9 yards per catch. He had 7.9 yards per target. So he was getting yards after catch.
No touchdown.
No touchdown. He didn't have Tutu Atwell had the touchdown. So his next 3 games, I know a lot of people are worried about San Francisco next week, but it's a divisional game. And I think Stafford knows this defense a little bit better than Kenny Pickett does. And I trust a veteran Stafford over a second-year Pickett. So Puka Nacua could get open. I think he could be a mismatch nightmare, but I love him for 2 weeks after that. And go and get him now because a lot of people, because they see them playing in San Francisco, are going to bail off of him. And you could probably get him for next to nothing or low down on the waiver priority. So he has San Francisco, Cincinnati, Indianapolis. Then Cooper Kupp is potentially going to be coming back a week after that. So I think until Cooper Kupp gets back, Puka Nacua is going to be a viable option at the flex play. And especially if you aren't deep at receiver, this is a guy you absolutely should go and target.
I like him a lot too. I like Tutu as well here. But the thing is, Matt Stafford's going to be Matt Stafford. The guy still has it. It's obvious. He was slinging the ball around. He beat a really good Seattle defense this week, and he did it himself, really. The running game did not show up at all. I mean, if you look at the running stats there, they were not efficient at all. It was all done through the air. And that's huge for the Rams offense because it will open up the running game for some of those running backs and maybe slow the game down for Matt Stafford. But when push came to shove, he took the ball in his hands and he slung it all around, and Puka was open nonstop. Well, crossing routes, sideline routes. He just was open. And there was a couple that were overthrows where he was open, just got overthrown. So I like him for sure.
I think that, at this point, Van Jefferson can be a drop. I think it's 3 years now in this offense, and we've been waiting for him with, when Cooper Kupp went down last year, we waited for him to emerge, and he never really emerged. And we've constantly been playing this, Van Jefferson has all this potential game. and it's just not there. And I think Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua are going to be the guys there until Cup
They're
gets
more
back.
electric players. They just have more bang to their buck. I think here's a perfect example. If you had Deontay Johnson, if you had
Jacobi Meyers.
actually Jacobi Meyers, or even if you even had George Pickens, and you're just unsure about how that offense is going to roll, you could feel more comfortable throwing in a guy like Puka Nacua or even Tutu that is going to get out there, and Matt Stafford is going to just try and get them the ball downfield, and they're going to get chunk yardage and chunk plays. So I like it.
Hey, guess what just came in? Breaking news. Austin Eckler is now dealing with an ankle injury. His status for practice this week is uncertain.
There you go. So keep an eye on that throughout the
pick up Josh Kelley, guys.
Kelley is a great opportunity. I'll move on to my second one here. I'm going to focus on the tight ends. And there's 2 tight ends that I like this week. You have Hunter Henry, who finished tight end 1 in standard scoring, and he's going up against Miami this week, who they were able to get passed upon by the Chargers last year and run on. But the running game should open up Hunter Henry big time as well. I also like Luke Musgrave, and I think I like Luke Musgrave a little bit better long term because he is a option and has a rapport with Jordan Love. And he's not splitting tight end receptions with a secondary tight end. But I think both guys are worthy of a pickup in terms of your waiver wire options. I think the more immediate value could be Hunter Henry. I think the long-term value could be Luke Musgrave. But again, after the greats who did not fare that well this week, because 2 of them didn't even play, you have a lot of the same down there. And to me, I think these are 2 shining lights. I mean, Luke Musgrave was the only guy who received a target from the tight end position. Hunter Henry did concede 3 targets and 3 receptions to Mike Gesicki, and we don't know how that's going to play out. Mac Jones has a rapport with him, but that's why I err on the side of Luke Musgrave, especially because Christian Watson still could be dealing with a hamstring injury. Romeo Doubs looked good, but who knows how the recovery, if he's still going to be limited next week or if he re-aggravates it during practice. Luke Musgrave was targeted heavily. There was a big 30-yard bomb too from Love that just overthrew him. He would have ended with 80+ yards on the day easily.
Yeah, I mean the same way you think that there's a connection. I think both these guys are really good options. I'd probably go towards Henry a little bit more. I've owned Henry in the past, and I think A, he's a red zone target, and B, there's no one. I mean, we'll talk. We could talk about Kendrick Bourne, as a potential waiver wire add as well. But the receiving position is much less talented in New England than it is in Green Bay. And yeah, Gesicki's there too, but Mac Jones has 2 or 3 years. This is the 3rd season with Hunter Henry there. So I do like that rapport a little bit better than I like the Musgrave and Jordan Love rapport, especially with how young that receiving core is. Just you don't know who's going to step up. Like I like Dobbs there, and when Christian Watson gets back and Jalen Reed was used heavily. So I mean, I don't dislike Musgrave. I think I just would favor Hunter Henry a little bit more.
Henry should be less owned anyway in your leagues. He's only 7% owned in sleeper leagues, and he opposed to Musgrave, who's I think in the 20s if I looked it back up again. So you have a better opportunity to get one of these guys for sure. We can keep going on tight ends if we wanted to, because Jake Ferguson is another one who got a ton of targets, just not big output in last night's debauchery. But these are the 2 that we recommend here.
Show it.
Hey, listen, I will still wear my red, white, and blue, even though we got shellacked. Who's your last of our waiver options?
Well, the last waiver options is a guy that if you guys have been following us from the beginning, this is one of my deep sleepers this year. And boy, did he pay off this week. And that's Rasheed Shaheed. He is a little bit heavily owned than the other 2 guys I talked to, but he's only 13% owned in sleeper leagues. He had 54% snap share. He was wide receiver 9 on the week. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 17.8 yards per catch and 14.83 yards per target. He also added on to that 2 rushing attempts for 11 yards. And he had a huge gain that got called back on the sideline. So his next two matchups are Carolina and Green Bay. Go and get Shaheed while he's still cheap or while he's still available. This is a guy you should absolutely stack in your team. He's a perfect target. This is when Derek Carr got signed there. This is why I loved him so much. Is he is a lightning in a bottle, deep play threat, and he is always open on crossing routes. And Derek Carr loves to throw the ball deep. And a guy that had 14.83 yards per target yesterday on 6 targets, like that's huge. It's massive. So it's a guy he should have been drafted as a late sleeper if he's available on your waiver wire, which again, he's going to be in most of your leagues because he's only 13% owned. He's going to be heavily involved in this offense. And this is going forward. I think he's going to take the place of a lot of other players. Even when Kamara gets back, he's still going to get a lot of usage there.
Yeah, I think that the players that take the hit there are going to be the tight ends. Because obviously Michael Thomas looked really good right off the bat, and then Olave picked up speed right where he left off last year, and then Shaheed was just used all over the place. I mean, Taysom Hill take a back seat. Roschon Johnson targets are going to go down, and I think passes to out the backfield are going to go down a little bit. I know he had a couple things out the backfield himself, but I just think you're going to see more involvement in a guy that's electric and fast. I like him. We talked about him all preseason, and he proved us right in our analytics of how we think he was going to be in this offense.
Rasheed Shaheed, get him.
I'll give you. We're gonna actually have time for one more each here too, since we're breezing through this. So I'll start here with Kenneth Gainwell as a big time option. He is quite owned in most leagues. So I will give a secondary option for that. But if he's not on your leagues, it proved like he was the only one in there. He was in 2-minute drills. He was getting receptions. He was getting rushes in a tough, hard-fought game. And everybody thought DeAndre Swift was going to be, maybe first man up there. To me, just showing in that first game against a tough defense, and they went to Kenneth Gainwell as often as they did. I believe he had 14 carries. He had another 4 receptions. And I think only 2 targets over to DeAndre Swift. He caught one for nothing, and the other one he dropped or missed. To me, is a situation that is something to look out for, because if it stays that way through the season, that's huge for Kenneth Gainwell. But be wary. It could be a New England Patriots situation where it is a hot hand, rotating carousel of whoever the coach wants to put out there based on game plan and the team they're playing. So for some reason, Nick Sirianni thought Gainwell is the guy to go with against one of the toughest defense in the NFL, and they showed it was a tough game for them to even win. And if they didn't get that pick 6, they may not win it. But if he is in your leagues, I also like Kyren Williams, another guy who it's a stash, maybe not for this week, but the 2 weeks after. They do have 2 good matchups that did not fare well to running backs in Cincinnati and Indianapolis, that he proved to be more efficient of a runner than Cam Akers, and that could give him some more touches in the backfield over Cam Akers. He had 2 touchdowns, so they trust him near the goal line, which is huge as well.
So, I mean, the 2 guys that you previously just mentioned as the pickups, I talked about today in a short, where their counterparts are guys I'm panicking on, are DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers, and both of them. Cam Akers, 22 rushes, 29 yards, and he had the touchdown, which was the saving grace, but extremely inefficient with running the ball. But what's concerning is he had under 30% snap share. And DeAndre Swift, same thing. I mean, just a horrible, close to 20% snap share. He had 1 rush and 1 reception, totaling 3 yards. I don't know what, Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch from that game. They went with Swift and Gainwell. I don't know what to make of those. But I just wanted to comment on that. And the guys I want to go over, and I'll briefly comment on this, is because they're going to be hot waiver wire targets this week, is going to be Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and even Melvin Gordon. And here's my take on that, is someone from that squad is going to emerge. We saw it a couple years ago when Dobbins got hurt, where Latavius Murray and Devonta Freeman were both viable options in the backfield.
And Kenyon Drake was there, I think, too.
And Kenyon Drake was there. And all of them were viable options. But the problem is that there's going to be two problems, is that your ceiling is going to look something like 40 yards and a touchdown. And your floor could be 0 because they could go with another guy that game. So I know that they're going to be hot waiver wire ads. I would probably take any of the guys that we talked about over those guys. I would take Kyren Williams. I would take Josh Kelley is probably my priority add of the guys.
Especially with the Eckler ankle.
Yeah. Of the guys that we talked about, even without the Eckler injury, he's probably, of the guys we talked about, my priority add. But then it's not that I don't like the Baltimore running backs, but Melvin Gordon can come up and just dominate the carries there. And then the next game, it'd be Gus Edwards. And then we saw yesterday, Justice Hill, 8 rushes, 9 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, and Gus Edwards had the majority of the workload after J.K. Dobbins got hurt, but he really wasn't that efficient with it. And he only had, he had 30% snap share, and that was after the Dobbins injury. But yeah, that's going to be a cluster, and I'd prefer to stay away from that. Like, luckily, I don't have to rush and grab a running back. Like, I'm in a good position right now. But if you want to go and stash one of these guys, or you are a Dobbins owner, don't be so quick to jump on the Baltimore backfield right now.
Yeah,
because
it it's difficult to see through the fog on that one, and especially because your number one rusher is going to be Lamar Jackson anyway. So that's the tough part.
I would say, like, if I'm not in the Fab League, our league does Fab, and I wouldn't really spend a lot of money. Like, I'd maybe 5%, if that, on one of these guys if I wanted to take a shot. But I would not break the bank to go and get one of these guys, because you're going to do it with Gus Edwards, and the next week it's going to be all Justice Hill or all Melvin Gordon, or they could make a trade for Jonathan Taylor. Or sign Kareem Hunt, and that's something that's very possible, because they could win. They could make a push to win this division, and if they're not comfortable with the running back room, they'll go and make a move.
And they should. I guess to me, I will say there's 2 other guys I had my mind on here that I wanted to put on my list. They just got off the side of it here. I'll start with the first one and briefly mention him, but I'll hammer it home with the guy who I think should be owned in leagues if you're looking for a wide receiver. But if you're looking for a running back too, Roschon Johnson had some spark at the end of the game. It is Khalil Herbert's backfield right now. He was the majority carrier there, but Roschon came in at 5 carries for 20 yards, and he looked really good as a pass catcher out the backfield. He was very elusive, initiated contact, bounced off bodies like a bowling pin here, a pinball, I should say. And I think he's somebody to keep an eye on, because the beat writers already talked about it, and other experts out there have already talked about the fact that, hey, they could see him it could be his backfield by the end of the season, mid-season. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but it is. If you've got a stash ability and all those other guys we've been talking about are gone, he's somebody to go grab, that he could be a possible league winner if he ends up having 60% snap share and rushes by 3/4 of the way through the season. Although Herbert didn't do anything to lose his spot. That's just
right.
Put that out there.
That's the downside of that play, is that, unless Herbert straight up loses the job, Roschon's not going to break into a 50% carry. Yeah, and Deontay Foreman didn't look bad either.
No, it just, they obviously were in a position, and they just leaned on the youth guys, see what they got. And I think he earned himself some more opportunities. But the real one I want to talk about is Zay Jones. This was, to me, he's 37% owned in sleeper leagues right now. It baffled me, because I so high on Christian Kirk previously. He reminds me of the whole Lockett. He's like, you can set 900 yards and forget it for him. Zay Jones, I should say, ended up with a 89% snap percentage for them yesterday. He ran the most routes alongside Calvin Ridley yesterday, well over Christian Kirk. I believe, I'm going to look it up now, I think Kirk was literally almost below 50% snap percentage. Yeah. Oh, he was just above 50. He was at 60% snap percentage. And that's running out the slot most of his routes. So to me, Zay Jones is the number 2 if you're taking anything out of week 1 there. And again, it's week 1. Don't panic and don't make these big moves. But if you got a spot, he's somebody that's on a good offense that can pass the ball well, run the ball well, and move. And he earned himself almost 80 or almost 90% snap percentage alongside Calvin Ridley, and he did well in it on top of it. So he's another big waiver wire priority for me. If you are struggling at wide receiver, you've got these Christian Watsons, Jerry Judys, that are maybe hurt, or the new ones like Deontay Johnson's, and you're just unsure, he's somebody that you could throw in there in a flex play and feel confident that he's going to get targets from Trevor Lawrence because of how often he's on the field.
I'll throw one more name out there, and this is a guy that if he's available in your leagues, you're going to be able to get for free right now because he just got put into concussion protocol, is Jacobi Meyers. First of all, stop with the Jimmy G hate, everyone. He looked good yesterday, and Jacobi Meyers was heavily involved in that offense, and he is a legit number 2 behind Davante Adams. And when Davante Adams gets doubled, Jacobi Meyers is a wide receiver 1 that is in a wide receiver 2 position, and I really like him. And because of the concussion protocol, he is, I think, 37% owned in sleeper leagues.
51 now in sleeper. Yeah, it's gone up because all those leagues that don't have waiver wire priorities and they have free agency, or they run waivers on Mondays, like they're able to grab him because it was well under that this morning.
Yeah, so I mean he's a guy that got owned, but if he's available, that's a wide receiver you should go out and target. Same with Kendrick Bourne. I think he's going to overtake Juju as the number 1 there. He already overtook Devontae Parker because Devontae Parker is old and washed up.
Doesn't take much to do that. Doesn't take much to a guy who can't separate well. So
yeah, so those are the 2 other guys too, if they're available. We're not going to go into depth on them because they are high ownership. But if they are available in your leagues, you should go and add them.
Yeah, if you didn't have a chance, or you don't want to scroll back and forth on our video to see who we did talk about at the end of this, please take a look at the comments. We'll list them all for you there. And we'll even put it in our priorities on, if you're looking for a running back, here's our priority. If you're looking for a receiver, here's a priority. We put it in. And if you're looking for a QB or tight end, here's our priorities in that one. So that way you get an idea of who you should put either fab in for, or you should put your waiver in for, based on if you are in need of one of those positions. So
yeah, and we do timestamp everything down low. So if you guys are looking for specific players, we are going to have a timestamp on the bottom, so you guys could scroll through and go to the players that you want to listen to. I know some of the longer videos they get long-winded, and you don't have an hour to sit through. But if you do want to skip to certain parts, we will have the timestamps on there for you to kind of skip ahead and watch. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you get everything. Don't forget we have a episode dropping on Thursday as well. That'll be our Thursday night preview. Chris is going to be rocking that one solo. He'll give you all the information for Thursday night's matchup for the Vikings and Eagles, and who he thinks should be starting and sitting there. And then I'll be back with you. I'll be back with you guys for the Saturday morning drop of our full weekend slate matchup, where, as Chris alluded to, we will have broken down, and you'll be able to scroll through and choose which matchups you want to listen to hear our starts and sits for each one. Thanks for tuning in, and like always, we'll see you next time.